All right, guys, welcome into the expansion draft reveal show and the draft lottery. I saw somebody asking the comments. We are going to be doing the expansion draft first. Draft lottery will be at the very end of this show. We got a couple of guests here on tonight, so we'll have them come on at various points and give their thoughts on this expansion draft and some of the other stuff going on around the league. So basically, what we're going to be. Oh, hold up. There we go. What we're going to be talking about here tonight. We're going to recap the rules of the expansion draft and what these teams were working with. Then we're going to go over what rosters each of these four new teams ended up with. We're not going to go pick by pick or anything like that. We're just going to show you guys the rosters in alphabetical order of each of these four new teams. And then we're going to take a quick look at the timeline coming up for the next few days as re-signing and free agency are right around the corner. And then lastly, we'll get to the draft lottery and see who's going to have that top pick come in 2 weeks on April 23rd when we do a live draft show. It'll be myself hosting that show as well as Squibs. And our faces will be on it. My face is not showing now, but 2 weeks from tonight it will be, and yeah, we'll have a good time. All right, so we'll get right to it. So if you guys have any questions, by the way, feel free to drop them in the chat. Here are the rules that these four new teams were working within. So each of the 12 pro teams were allowed to protect a maximum of 14 players. This included their own player, their goaltender, and any affiliates that they might have wanted to keep protected if they still had affiliate players left in the pipeline. Each existing pro team could lose a maximum of 3 players in the expansion draft. Yeah, PowerPoint's the way to go. So yeah, you could lose a maximum of 3 players in expansion. Once 3 players, including the new expansion owners and staff, were taken from one particular pro team, the rest of that team's exposed players were locked. So, for example, Dublin lost Eric Newton and Phil O'Brien both to ownership of one of these new expansion teams, so they could only lose one more during the draft. The expansion draft order was randomized well in advance, and we did a snake draft with the 4 teams. Any contracts of the players selected carry over to their new expansion teams. And so that means any expiring contracts are still expiring. Free agents do not have to sign with the team that drafted them in the expansion draft. But if you are on a 2 or 3 season contract, you still that contract is still valid, and you will move over to the expansion team. All promises and no trade clauses and things like that remain intact as well. Any players selected during the expansion draft cannot return to their old team until after week 2 via trade or free agency. So this means this rule essentially was put in to prevent the team from exposing all free agents and then getting them all right back a few days later. So this is essentially, yeah, until after week 2 of the regular season, you can't go back to the team that exposed you if you were selected. If you were exposed and unselected, you're fine to return back to your team. And existing teams were allowed to trade with expansion teams in order to steer their selections one way or the other. Um, so if they wanted to protect an extra player, they could give up draft picks to do that. If they wanted to have certain players selected so that others would get locked up early, they could do that as well. I guess we'll bring in one of our guests here, Eric Newton. What was it like operating within these rules? Obviously, it's kind of tough to come up with a rule set that's fair to all the expansion teams and the existing teams. But how did you find, I guess, navigating building your roster up with these guidelines?
For me, it was pretty easy, honestly, because I've had conversations with a lot of the players that were exposed. And that was the key thing is that I wanted people in the clubhouse to be they that wanted to enjoy being there. Um, but I had my core people that I was going for, and then I had the backup people just in case the core people were taken. Um, it took some time to come follow around and make sure that I was following the guidelines. But once I understood and asked the questions I needed to ask, it kind of all just fell into place relatively easy.
Awesome, yeah. That's good to hear for sure. We'll bring in another guest here. We got Fox Highwind. He's the GM of the Cleveland Hounds. Obviously, you're a little newer to the league, Fox, coming straight up from the minors to become a GM of a pro team. I guess what was it like for you getting acclimated to the league and then having to kind of navigate these rules as well?
Um, well, I've got to agree with Eric. It wasn't too bad. Coming from the minors, I didn't at first watch a ton of the pro games, so I was kind of left out there of not knowing a lot of people. But I kind of handled it the same way I handled, the upcoming entry draft. I just messaged everybody, asked them how they felt about being on the not being protected, how they'd feel about playing for another team, and kind of see how the conversation went from there. And like he said, we had our core group of guys that we wanted, had some backups, and we knew that since it was going to be a slower draft, then we'd have time to adjust if we needed to.
Awesome. Yeah, so I guess without further ado, we'll get right into what these team rosters ended up looking like. So we're gonna start, like I said, we're gonna go alphabetical. So we're gonna start over in Boston with the War Unicorns, and let's reveal that roster. So up front, they took Eric Newton, obviously their owner, James Carter from Dublin, Davius Reed from Jacksonville, Wyatt Harris out of Turku, Noel Chayko, probably mispronounced that one, from Florence. Defensemen, they got Juan Kameny from Jacksonville, Alexander Lidstrom from Florence, and Mark Martin from Glasgow. And they elected to pass on their final selection, not selecting a ninth player, um, which is why the wording of the rules where each existing team could lose a maximum of 3 players, because teams were allowed to pass and not select players if they didn't want to keep picking. So I guess we'll go back to you, Eric. What are your thoughts, kind of, on how the draft shook out for you, the guys you ended up with, and I guess that decision to pass on your ninth round pick?
So I'll answer the question with the reason why I passed on the final pick. Um, I want to give people the opportunity to not really prove themselves, but the people that are down the minors. There's a lot of hungry people that want to come up to the pros, and I felt like being able to pass on that final selection give leaves an open spot for a minor to come up and kind of have at least try to get a slot in the unicorns locker room, because I've been watching a lot of the minors, and there's a lot of good candidates to be drafted, and with a lot of teams in the pros already, they have a good sense of what they're looking for and whatnot. I'm fairly new to this whole owning a team thing, so my goal was, all right, let's see what we can grab down at the minors to fill in for what we need, whether if we do sign someone from a free agent or if we're missing slots from the expansion drafts. That was my thought going forward, is that trying to give someone that opportunity to come up rather than give someone who's already in the pros another team. It was just more of like, let's give someone new a chance kind of thing. As far as the players that I chose, it was without a question of a doubt. I had to pick James Carter with the way he played in the postseason for Dublin. That watching him play the way he did was amazing. Juan is a good pick, just because he's a solid defenseman, including Lindstrom. And yeah, I've seen a few games with Wyatt Harris. He's pretty good too. So all around, I think it was a. I think I grabbed who I felt was going to be not only great on the ice but great in the clubhouse. That's going to fit our crazy, let's have fun kind of clubhouse where we all just get along and just just have fun with this rather than like try to focus. Like, yeah, every team tries to focus on winning, but the main goal is to enjoy the team itself, because I'd rather have people that need work and enjoy the team rather than someone who's really good and hates being here. So that was my focus on my picks.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, obviously, team environments and team attitude is a huge aspect, especially in sim leagues. You can pick all the highest rated players, but if if they're not going to stick around, not going to enjoy themselves, then you're going to be replacing them with lower rated players, or they're not going to be progressing as well. And so yeah, building a good locker room is important, especially as an expansion team. It's going to be a bit tough probably from day one, but if you build that locker room early, then you'll be able to turn yourself into a competitive team pretty quickly, I think. Yeah, you mentioned Wyatt Harris. I know him personally from owning Turku, and he's going to be a big loss for us. But it's going to be exciting to see him get an opportunity to probably play a little higher in the lineup than we had space for him. So I'm excited to see what he can do elsewhere. Yeah, and like you said about the draft class, there's a lot of hungry minors this season. It's probably the deepest draft class we've had since this league started. So it's definitely a good time to be, I guess, a team that needs a lot of rookies like some of these expansion teams are going to. And yeah, it's going to be a fun time 2 weeks from tonight when we find out who everybody took.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even Carter, like I was talking about earlier, like I know he was like the primary fourth line for Dublin, and I would like to see him go up a little more, give more ice time, see what he actually pulls out. So,
Absolutely.
if all the people are in the chat, welcome on in, and I hope you guys enjoy the team.
Awesome. Well, let's move on here. We got our second team here. This is the Cleveland Hounds. Owner is Eric Davis, one of our deputy commissioners. He's coming over from Las Vegas. Let's take a look at what the rest of his roster ended up looking like. So up front, we got Earl Flint from Albuquerque, Chex Lemonu from Turku, Tim Kelleher from Jacksonville, Isaiah Palomares from Alaska, Bjorn Madison from Norfolk, Murgatroyd Skittle off of Glasgow. Defenseman, they took Eric Davis, obviously the owner from Las Vegas, Frank Castle from Norfolk, and Average Demko from Tennessee. One player that will be on their team that is not listed here is obviously our other guest here tonight, Fox Highwind. Just listed the players taken in the expansion process here. Fox is a minors player who's stepping up into a GM role. He's going to bypass the draft to do so, which is something we've allowed new teams to do before, is bringing in a GM from the draft class. So I guess, Fox, let's bring you in here. What are your thoughts on the roster you guys were able to put together in the expansion draft?
Personally, I think we won the draft. Other than Eric, because Boston, because Boston really took 4 or 5 of the guys we also wanted, so we knew we were on the right track with that. But talking with Eric before the expansion draft, we wanted to build a good defense first, and he played with Frank with Vegas, and we hit him up right away, and he was very, very excited to come to Vegas. We felt like we got some good players who may have gone under the radar for some teams. I know Tex was really excited to come to us. At first, he wanted to stay with Turkey, but the more we talked to him, the more that he was really excited. I'm sorry about that, Evan. But he's a really good guy, and that's what we really wanted, was a good atmosphere. People like Eric said, that want to play with us, that are going to be happy and aren't going to be complaining that they, they're going to play with an expansion team. They want to help build something. I personally think that with the right strats, with the right lines, with the right players, we could get to the playoffs in the first season. I'd love to win a championship in the first season. That'd be awesome. But it all works if everybody is on board. I know I talked with you earlier about picking up Tim Kelleher. I talked with him for an hour. Eric talked with him for about an hour, and we both came away feeling like we'd known him for a long time. And that's the kind of person we want in the locker room as well. Towards the end of the draft, things kind of go haywire based on who else was picked by other teams. But I had a chance to talk to everybody that we drafted, and all of them were very excited to be able to have the opportunity to play for us. So everybody that we got, we know wants to become part of that, the organization, and help it grow, and hopefully build something really special in Cleveland.
Yeah, absolutely, and kind of saying along the same lines as what Eric just talked about with Boston. Just building that atmosphere from day one gives you an opportunity to really, I guess, compete sooner, because you need a positive locker room and a lot of active people in order to do that. Like you mentioned, Chex Lemonu, that's another one of the guys we lost in Turku. And he was one we hated to lose. We hated to have to expose him. We acquired him in a trade mid-season, and our team kind of fell in love with him pretty quickly. But we had to make some tough decisions when it came time to put out the exposure lists, and we did explore trading picks to each of the 4 teams to kind of leave him alone, so he could come back to us. But that price was going to start getting a little hefty with 4 teams to have to pay off. So we didn't do it, but I'm glad that he was happy to go to you guys, and I think you guys got a nice pick there, as well as a solid roster all around to start off. I guess, Fox, on a more personal note, what are your thoughts on not getting the draft day experience? I guess when I joined the league, I was kind of expecting to be part of the startup draft. Then an owner dropped out late. I stepped into ownership and kind of pulled myself out of the draft. So that's another experience that I haven't had myself. But what are your thoughts on taking on a pro GM job at the expense of the draft experience for yourself?
At the end of the day, I'm totally fine with it. I would have loved to have gone through the draft. I'm in another sim league that some people probably know me from. I've been in the draft there. It was a really cool experience. This kind of allows other players to, there's no telling. I personally, I don't feel like there's any telling where I could have gone. I felt like there were times where I could have been a first-round pick. There were times where I could have been a last-round pick. I don't know. But I do know that if I was going to be a higher pick, somebody else is going to get that experience now. And it's going to be really, really cool for them. I've experienced that before, like I said. So at the end of the day, it's really about coming on to a pro team and helping to build it, and you really can't put a price on that. I guess it's a unique experience all to itself. It's a great opportunity, and I'm really excited that Eric reached out to me when he did, because the first time he reached out to me, I thought he was talking about where do you see yourself going, and I didn't know. I was like, well, I mean, I live in Tennessee, so Tennessee would be cool. I know Dave Axis, from the other league I'm in. But then he was like, well, we're kind of thinking about taking you first. Well, we actually we're looking for a GM role too. I was like, dude, I'll do it. And he was like, done. So it's he and I, after many conversations over the past few weeks, have discovered that we have the same mind of how we want to build the team, and there's nothing that you can, like I said, put a price on that as far as two people like with their minds aligned in that aspect.
Yeah, absolutely, and yeah, like running a team in this league is quite the experience. Like I said, I skipped the draft process as well when I became a late owner before the syrup draft, and but I mean, I wouldn't change that decision going back now, almost 11 months or more than 11 months now, I guess. Um, yeah, like it's a great experience to run a team here, and yeah, the draft day experience is cool, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how you guys do, and glad you got that GM role. We're gonna
Thank
move
you. I
on.
appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah, of course. We're gonna move on here now. We're gonna look at the third team. That is the Melbourne Marauders. They were originally the Gold Coast Gladiators until we realized that Gold Coast wasn't in NHL 22. I think everybody kind of thought each other had checked that list, and Gold Coast is not an option in the game, so they went with the Melbourne Marauders. So sticking in Australia, let's take a look at the roster they put together. So up front, they got Phil O'Brien, one of their owners, of course, Jake Molyneux out of Vegas, Josh Sheerin out of Redwater, Braden Leach from Redwater. On the back end, they took, obviously, Mikey Adams, their other owner, from Florida, Alistair Lee from Turku, Cole Ramchick from Florence, and Gertie Adams from Florida. A couple of notes here. They did pass on their final selection, just like Boston did. And as you can see there, Las Vegas is sending a Season 4 third-round pick to Melbourne in order for them to select Jake Molyneux. That was done, I guess, to protect further players on Vegas' roster, knowing they were probably losing Molyneux. That would be my guess. But, yeah, so in that third-round pick, I believe, because of a previous trade, is actually Norfolk's pick originally. But I could be wrong. Yeah, we don't have anybody from Melbourne on this call, so I guess maybe Eric, did you want to kind of give your thoughts on how this roster kind of shook out after the draft?
Um, there was a few people I wanted on my team. Unfortunately, due to the rules of how everything went, I just couldn't get certain people. So it is what it is. It's all part of the game, and I think Melbourne did a really great job for the picks they got.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're going to have another one of these expansion teams with an active room and some pretty talented players, especially if they do get Molyneux to sign. Yeah, you can. I saw Biff say he thought Molyneux was a free agent. He is. There are a number of free agents or pending free agents, I guess is the right word for it, who were in the expansion draft. The expansion teams were allowed to select them and try to sign them if they would like, but they don't have to sign with the expansion team. Um, yeah, I talked about a little bit about that earlier in the show, and we'll probably touch on it a little bit more later when we talk about the free agency timeline. Um, yeah, so selecting him kind of locked up another one of Vegas's players from being selected. Yeah, and I mean, yeah, some great talented players here. Obviously, Phil O'Brien and Mikey Adams are two original six players as their owners, so they're off to a great start. And then obviously Molyneux is a great addition. If they can sign him, Alistair Lee is a very active person as well. Hate to see him go from Turku as well, but they're putting together a good roster here for sure. All right, and now the fourth and final expansion team to take a look at here. We've got the San Diego Reapers. Their owner is Matt Green. And let's take a look at the roster that he put together. So up front, obviously Matt Green himself from Albuquerque. Julian Alejandro, who will be his general manager, also from Albuquerque. Logan Levy out of Las Vegas. Gus Cerrone from Alaska. Colby Wiersma from Tennessee. Jay Hill from Redwater. Terry Labonte from Glasgow. And Cole King from Norfolk. And on the back end, just the one selection, the fewest defensemen selected by any expansion team, and that is Bane Cadis out of Tennessee. And I guess Molyneux in the chat saying he is going to sign in Melbourne, so we'll see on Wednesday when free agency opens, but that's huge news there, of course. So this is another team that, they're looking like a very active group of people here. The one defenseman means they're probably going to have to focus on that position early in the entry draft in a couple of weeks. But yeah, some real active people. I know when Bane Cadis was coming out of the minors into the rookie draft last season, he was highly sought after because of that activity level. And there's a few other guys on this roster, of course, like that as well. Matt was going to join, but he couldn't. So maybe Fox, did you want to give your thoughts on how San Diego put together their squad here?
Sure. They've got a few players that initially we were interested in. At first, of course, you don't really know who anybody's going to pick, but sometimes people let those picks kind of out of the bag. So other than really a couple of guys, we hadn't really talked to many of the players that they picked, but I think they've got some really good players going over to San Diego. I think they're going to be really happy over there. Matt's a good guy. He was my coach for the Snowhawks. Very talkative, very funny. I don't know Julian very much, but I would assume he's the same if he's friends with Matt. Logan's a good player. We really wanted Gus, and then kind of found out that he was angling to be on San Diego, so we kind of reached out to him one more time, and kind of got the feeling that he wouldn't really want to sign with us. So we figured that was cool. We have the players we wanted, but looking this over, he's got some good players but San Diego is going to need some help on defense, like you said. They've got Bane, but being the only defensive player so far, then hopefully in free agency they can do something as well before they hit the draft. But other than that, then I have no idea what's on their plate now. Matt doesn't divulge anything else to me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, these expansion teams, you're all going to have quite a bit of cap space, I'm sure, entering free agency. So yeah, maybe there's a defender or two out there on the market that he'll be able to bring in when free agency does open up. But yeah, obviously the draft will be a big moment for him to kind of fill up that blue line and kind of add some more defensive pieces. But overall, looking like a pretty good active room. And like you said, Matt's a great guy. I don't know Julian as well, but I know him a little. And he seems like a good guy. I think they'll build a really positive atmosphere and a good locker room there, and they'll really be exciting to watch them grow as a franchise.
Agreed.
All right, so that's what the 4 expansion teams look like. We're doing okay for time. I was thinking the show might last somewhere around an hour. We've still got a few more things to go over. Now that we've revealed the 4 expansion teams, these are what the divisions and the conferences are going to look like next season. We are moving to a divisional format. It just helps with scheduling a little bit. You'll play 6 games a season against each of the other teams in your division. You'll play 4 games a season against the teams in the opposite division, same conference as you. And you'll play 2 times a season against the teams in the opposite conference. So we've got the Mr. Hockey Conference, features the Europe division, which has the Dublin Dragons, Florence Firebirds, Glasgow Blackwatch, and the Turku Finns. along with the Pacific Division featuring the Alaska Arctic Wolves, Albuquerque Pharaohs, Melbourne Marauders, and San Diego Reapers. On the Rocket Conference side, we've got the Atlantic Division featuring Boston War Unicorns, Florida Challengers, Jacksonville Vipers, Norfolk Navigators, and the Central Division with the Cleveland Hounds, Las Vegas Sinners, Redwater Undertakers, and the Tennessee Black Bears. I guess, Eric, what are your thoughts on your division? How tough that division looks from the outset, and I guess your thoughts as well on only having to play your old team a couple times a year.
I'm excited to play the Dublin Dragons. Honestly, that will always be a team I will love face. As far as the division, very interesting. To be quite honest, especially taking 2 picks from Jacksonville and 1 from Florida. Um, I think being able to pick a lot of players from the expansion from the same division I'm in puts me at a good chance to stay on top of my division. Um, as for conferences, I'm very interested to see how this is going to turn out at the end.
Awesome. Yeah, and then I guess Fox being in the same conference as Eric, but opposite division. What are your thoughts there? And obviously, you guys have to play the Sinners, which is your owner's old team. You have to play them 6 times a season. I guess what are your thoughts on that rivalry starting to brew and kind of the rest of the divisional setup?
I think that's going to be a really good rivalry going forward. Just as far as with Vegas, like you said, because Eric did come from there, and so did Frank.
Right.
I I think that, I mean, with 2 playoff teams from this season, and honestly Tennessee looking a lot stronger towards the end of the season, and knowing, like I said, I know Dave, I know his style, I know that they're going to be stronger next season. I think it's going to be really challenging, but I think it's one that's not too insurmountable for the conference or for the division. So I'm thinking pretty positively right now, but I do know Vegas is going to be is going to be the toughest sell right there to have to face them 6 times in a season. But at least we don't have to face, Dublin or Florida 6 times. That's good.
Geez, thanks for reminding me. I have to face Florida 6 times. I'll go cry in the corner. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Hey, that's what I'm here for. Is hugs and tears.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, yeah, you mentioned the 2 playoff teams in your division. That was kind of a nice little fluke with how balanced these divisions ended up being. We set these divisions up sometime around mid-season, as we were planning for next season, as a kind of location-based setup, knowing that we could go balance and one like first place, fifth place, whatever, and kind of keep them balanced that way. But kind of going location based made for some fun rivalries, and over time teams would balance out. And then when the season ended, it actually turned out 2 playoff teams are in each division, which is kind of a nice little, I guess, nod to the balance of the divisions right off the hop. Europe is the only one without an expansion team, but there are still 2 expansion teams in that conference, so it's still 2 per conference. So yeah, it turned out to be pretty balanced, even though we went location based. So pretty happy with that. All right, so re-signing and free agency, like I mentioned, kind of off the top, it's right around the corner. Teams can begin to re-sign their players on expiring deals starting tomorrow. I believe the plan is to open that up around noon Eastern time. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes and how many teams immediately start re-signing their guys versus who's going to free agency. But re-signing does open tomorrow, so look for some signings to be posted tomorrow afternoon and evening. Open free agency begins on April 13th, which is Wednesday. That's when any player looking to change teams can begin to sign their new contracts. Obviously, if they declare for free agency, they can be talking to teams already. If they haven't declared for free agency, they need to either do that or wait until Wednesday to begin talking to other teams. And one thing I should point out, re-signing does apply to any player chosen by an expansion team. Somebody like, thinking of Jake Molyneux, who got taken by Melbourne with an expiring contract, he's counting as a re-signing for Melbourne, not as a free agent for Vegas. So he can re-sign with Melbourne starting tomorrow if that's what he wants to do. If he changes his mind and wants to go to open free agency, he'll have to wait till Wednesday to sign with any other team. And obviously, you can't go back to Vegas per the week 2 rule that I mentioned off the top. And then, there's, by my count, 69 current or pending free agents on the market, 14 of which were selected in the expansion draft. So we'll see how many of those 14 re-sign with their expansion team, or how many of them decide to wait till Wednesday and hit the open market. All right, on to the draft lottery. Lots of people probably in the chat looking forward to this one. This is where we will determine picks 1 through 8 of the entry draft. That again is 2 weeks from tonight, on April 23rd. So, like I mentioned, picks 1 to 8 of each round are determined by the draft lottery. Picks 9 to 16 of each round are determined by the playoff results. The top 8 teams in the lottery can land anywhere from 1 to 8. There are no restrictions on how far a team may fall or climb. The 4 expansion teams and the team that finished 12th place, Tennessee, all have the same and best odds in the lottery, of course. So that means 5 teams of the 8 will all have an equal shot at the number 1 pick, which means really any team in those 5 falling to 8 would be only falling a few spots anyway. Picks will be shown during the lottery by the original owner, not reflecting trades. We will talk a little bit about the trades that were made in a moment as well. That was all of them. So that's the draft lottery rules. It will be done using draftpicklottery.com live on this stream. Nobody has seen results. I haven't seen them. It hasn't been processed yet. It will be done right in front of you guys. Completely live, and I will find out and react at the same time as you guys do. Now some picks that were traded that are in the lottery. This will only show picks in the 1 to 8 of each round that were traded. If you want to see all traded picks, they are available on the roster sheet under future trades. This is just going to be talking about the ones that are going to be impacted by tonight's lottery. Albuquerque receives Tennessee's first round pick. No matter what, done deal. That's the easiest one we're looking at in the first round here tonight. Dublin receives Norfolk's first round pick, but it is top 3 protected, meaning if Norfolk's pick is in the top 3, Dublin will have Norfolk's first round pick in season 5 instead, and Norfolk will have a top 3 selection this season. Florence's first round pick will go to either Glasgow or Turku. This is the one that gets a little more complicated. If Florence pick is the first overall selection, it goes to Turku, and Glasgow will get the season 5 first from Florence. If Florence's pick is anything else, so pick 2 through 8, then it will go to Glasgow, and Turku will receive Florence's season 5 first instead. The reason on that condition, Florence made a trade with Glasgow for a first-round pick that was top 1 protected. And then Florence and Turku made a later trade involving a first-round pick. And because of that restriction already on Florence's pick, they had to fit this other condition in there. So either way, Florence won't have their own first-round pick. It will be either going to Glasgow or Turku. Second-round picks traded in the lottery range. Albuquerque gets Tennessee's as well. That is the last pick of, I believe, the last pick of the big Biff Markham trade from a couple seasons ago. Norfolk will receive Glasgow's pick through a trade with Dublin. Glasgow will receive Norfolk's pick through a trade with Las Vegas. And third round picks, Melbourne will get Norfolk's via a trade with Las Vegas related to the expansion draft. All right, now we got some lottery odds, and we'll bring our guests back in a second to kind of talk about this and what they're hoping for, I guess. So here we are. Like I said, the 4 expansion teams and the last place team, Tennessee, will have 16% chance each Florence will have a 10% shot, Norfolk at 6%, and Glasgow at 4%. Yeah, Dublin or Craig cannot receive the first overall pick. The only team, well, I guess Cleveland does have a commish, Eric Davis. My team, Turku, could receive the first pick if Florence wins the lottery. And yeah, that's the only commissioners that have a shot at the lottery here. So I guess I'll bring you guys back in here for a sec. Our guests, I guess Fox, what are your? Obviously, everybody's hoping for the first overall pick, but aside from that, what are you looking for in this lottery, and what are you thinking?
Well, I'm not too sure what we're looking for yet. I've reached out to all the minor league players, whether they've responded or not. That's something different, but at least to gauge interest. I knew that going into this, we had to have the expansion draft first, and then to a finer point, free agency, before we could even decide, what positions we're even looking for. And having a little bit of conversations with some free agents, and knowing we've got some good stuff coming down the pipeline, I would think that probably another defender would probably be a good pick for us. Obviously, like you said, I'm hoping for the top pick, but if not, then I can't complain with getting a top 5 pick.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the way the odds are shaking out, that should be possible. Obviously, you could slide all the way to 8, but yeah.
Right.
I mean, in this draft class, it's very deep. I think anywhere in the first round, you'll be looking at some pretty talented options up there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Eric Newton, what are your, I guess, thoughts? Again, everybody obviously wants the first pick, but aside from that, what are your thoughts heading into the draft and this lottery?
Honestly, like I've had several. It's kind of the same thoughts I had going through for the expansion draft. Um, I more want the people who want to be in the clubhouse, be active in the clubhouse, and want to be on the team. Like I've reached out to a few minor players. I have a few friends that are down in the minor teams. Hoping to get them, but if I don't, it is what it is. Having a 16% chance of being one is great, or at least in the top 3 is great. But when it boils down to being on the Boston Unicorns team, it's more about like people who want to be here rather than just playing for a team. Like I said, I'll take anybody who wants to be there over someone who just has great stats. Because to me, if you want to be here, you make being on the team fun. Going forward, I think as part of one of the expansions, I think priority for myself and the other expansion teams is we're gonna have to grab the best goalie we can, depending on what we get. So I look forward to this. I'm very excited. I can't wait to see who we get going into this.
Absolutely, and like I mentioned, it's a very deep draft class, so you're focusing on people who want to play for you, and I think that there's enough people who have lots of progression under their belt that if a player doesn't interview that well, you don't have to kind of pick them and hope for the best. You can kind of go for the guys are going to be active and that you like. So that's going to be an interesting draft this time for sure. I'm just going to respond to a couple things in chat. Somebody asked if there's going to be a mock draft after this is over. I assume there will be. The experts typically start turning stuff out as we get closer to the draft when there's less games. So maybe I'll reach out to them when this is over and just kind of see where they're at on that. And then, yeah, Twin Screw does point out he was an expansion team last season and ended up with the last draft lottery pick, which I think the lottery size last season was 6 teams, if I'm not mistaken. So you never know. It could go, I guess, lower for these expansion teams, but this draft class is very deep, and I think no matter what pick people end up with, it's going to be a good time. All right, so it is time to do this lottery. I'll just pull up draftpicklottery.com. Like I said, I've got it open somewhere. Here we are. All right. So yeah, if you guys don't know this site, highly recommend for any lotteries you guys have to do for fantasy leagues, sim leagues, whatever. You can do it straight, custom, or weighted. That's an actual site. Yes, it is. Draftpicklottery.com. I use it for all of my fantasy leagues. It's awesome. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead. There's probably gonna be an ad pop up. There it is. Get rid of that. All right. So we're gonna reveal starting with pick 8 and work our way up the order. So here we go. 8th overall pick is going to Norfolk. Had 6% shot at the first pick, so they slide down one spot from where their expected pick would be. Pick number 7, Glasgow, 4% shot, so they just swapped spots, one after the other. Moving on to pick number 6. It is Boston. An expansion team falls to 6th place after a 16% shot. Eric, did you want to comment on your thoughts on landing the 6th overall pick?
I mean, it's not where I was hoping to land, but you know what? Well, we'll make it work. It's for me. It's about learning. It's about still trying to understand how all this works. I'm happy we weren't the last one. That's all I can really say about that.
For sure, yeah. So, obviously not where you'd hope. There's still one team that was outside the top 5, obviously available. That is Florence's pick. That, like I said, is either going to go to Glasgow or Turku. So we'll see how far they climbed. But yeah, Boston, one of the expansion teams, is slotted in at number 6. 5th overall pick. That is the Florence pick. So that means Glasgow will have pick number 5 with a 10% shot. They move up one spot. So that means the top 4 picks will all be either expansion teams or the Tennessee pick. And here we go. We'll go with pick number 4. It is the Tennessee Black Bears selection that is going to Albuquerque. So the Albuquerque Pharaohs will be picking 4th overall after Tennessee lands there in the draft lottery. Pick number 3 now. That is San Diego. They are picking number 3, Matt Green's team. So, yeah, we'll show number 1 and number 2 in a second here. But, I guess, Fox, what are your thoughts? You guys are still alive in the lottery. I guess, what's the heart rate or the blood pressure at, and how are you feeling?
Well, I didn't think that it would give me so much as a physical reaction, but my heart rate actually has sped up. Having the number 1 overall, or even the number 2 overall, is pretty big because you kind of give somebody that dream, and who do you give that to? And there's like 100 some players in the minors. If I've got the number 1 pick, then that's actually a lot more pressure than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, for sure. It's always tough. I had the 1st overall pick back in the startup draft before season 1, and that was a very tough decision. And right up until the pick was made, I knew who I was going with, but that self doubt starts to creep in, especially not having a whole lot of sim experience at the time. And anytime you don't know a lot about the draft class, and you can know as much as you can by talking to them and looking at their builds and stuff, but you never really know who's going to stick around. So having a high pick is a lot of pressure, but there's a lot of potential there for sure.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to get another Jamarcus Russell. That wouldn't. Wrong sport, but you see where I'm going with this.
Yeah, for sure. And our 1st round pick back in the startup, I was very happy with the production that they had, but the player's no longer in the league, so it was a short-lived career. The person is still in. They came back after leaving and created a goaltender place for another team. But you can have a great player who all of a sudden has to leave for any number of reasons, or you might end up with a player who sticks around and isn't as productive as you'd hope. So, but hopefully that pick works out, and all you can hope for really is a active and positive person. All right, so we're going to take a look at number one first, because doing it the other way would just be kind of anticlimactic. We're going to award the first overall pick. Here we go. It is the Cleveland Hounds, meaning the Melbourne Marauders, slot in at number 2. So now that has come to fruition, Fox, how are you feeling over there in Cleveland, and how quickly are you guys going to get to finishing that draft board?
I'm pretty excited. I'm kind of blown away because that's the premier spot right there. As far as getting prepared for the entry draft, like I said, I've reached out to everybody and let them know that I'd be having further conversations with them as the draft got closer. I don't necessarily think it's close enough. We're definitely going to start weeding, not necessarily people out, but who kind of deserves that number one pick out of everybody. And it's really going to be tough because, like you said, there are a ton of talent in the minors this season.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very deep draft class, and my staff had a meeting the other day to kind of talk about things. We all hopped on a voice call, and I think that call lasted almost 3 hours. Just kind of, and at times it got off topic, but that's just how deep this draft class is. And 3 hours for what's going to end up being 3 open roster spots in the draft. So a lot to talk about and a lot of players to sort through. So I guess good luck in your draft preparations. And it's going to be a fun process for sure. Eric, did you have any kind of closing thoughts or anything about the, how the expansion process went, how the draft lottery went, and what you're kind of looking forward to moving forward?
I mean, I think it's speaking of as an owner of the Boston Unicorns. I mean, I'm okay with what I got because I had the kind of the first overall pick for the expansions. So I'm okay getting the 6. I think my last closing thoughts are, those are in the minors. If you have a team you want to be drafted to, talk to the owners. Let them know you're interested. The less work the owners have to do to figure out who wants to be on the team, the easier your chances are to get drafted to said team. I'm not gonna name names, but I know there's a few people in the minors that I know I'm gonna take if I can because we've had great conversations, but they're the ones that reached out to me saying, "Hey, I'm interested to play for you guys." And then we've kept having those conversations about what would it look like? Where would I have you if you were to come on to the team? Like that, the more you talk to the owners of the teams and the GMs and anybody associated with either the expansions or pro teams, the more your chances to get taken. So those are my final words to the minor players is have those conversations, let them know you're interested, and at that point, just hope that you get taken in the draft.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously those conversations are a huge aspect, especially in these draft or in these sim leagues. I mean, where you can have a great build, but if you're not going to stick around, it's pretty worthless to you. And I guess Fox, any closing thoughts? Obviously, you guys won the lottery and built a pretty good squad there, but do you have any closing thoughts on how the whole process was and what you're most looking forward to now with the draft in a couple of weeks?
Well, at first the process was a little bit more difficult to understand because I hadn't gone through that on the GM side. I know you answered a lot of questions from me over a 4-hour period in DM, so I really appreciate that. It really, I can't agree with Eric more. If you're a minor league player, reach out. And I know I've already reached out, but hey, I've had 2 or 3 others that have followed up on that. Not many more. But so, conversation is everything. Getting to know you is everything. If somebody messages you and asks you, "Hey, we're interested in having you on the team. What do you think about it?" And you're just like, "Cool," or "I'll play for anybody." It's not necessarily what a lot of people are looking for. So just I got to agree with Eric. talk to owners or GMs and hit them up. Hit me up. I want to wake up in the morning to 30 DMs, please. It does make the job easier, and especially with having the number one pick, plus now realizing that it's going to be all, I guess this isn't a snake draft, is it?
No, it's not.
It's going to be number one. Okay, so my next point was moot, but yeah. Anyways, just talk to your owners, and I guess be yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Oop, there we go. Yeah, absolutely, and that's a big part of this this draft process is talking to the owners and just kind of seeing and one message I want to get out there to prospects too with the draft coming up is you never know how this whole process is going to go, how the draft board is going to fall, because every season it seems like there's a different archetype or player type that's kind of prioritized, and each team has their own things they look at, whether it's activity or it's build or archetype or handedness or the conversation you guys had. So if you're expecting to be a first round pick and it doesn't work out that way, don't get too discouraged. Really, in the end of the day, once you're in the league, it doesn't matter if you went first or 50th. Players from all over the draft board can come in and win awards, and so just stay positive, whether you're expecting to be first and go late or expecting to be late and go first. You never know. Some teams look at goalies early, some teams look at defensemen or forwards, and it all depends on what they do in free agency as well. So just stay positive throughout the process and just enjoy it. And that's all I got to say. That's all I have for you guys here tonight. I can quickly show you guys the expansion rosters in case any of you missed it. I'll just quickly show them. Just so you just flip them through here so you can see what each of these teams ended up with, and then we'll close out the stream after this. All right, and as far as the draft lottery goes, like I said, the traded or the future trades tab on the roster sheet should have everything. We're gonna double check it to make sure no trades were missed. But yeah, check that out. We're gonna have a full draft board done and ready soon now that the lottery is completed. Best of luck, everybody. Have a great rest of your Saturday night, and I'll talk to you guys again in a couple weeks when I host the draft. Make sure to tune in for that one. Thanks, guys, and thank you to Fox and Eric, of course, for hopping on the call this evening.
Thanks for having us on. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, and Krieg's gonna set up a raid. Oh, I'm chatting as Krieg this time.